Hello, my name is Brendan. I am 15 years old. I'm from Texas. And this is my opinion as somebody who moderately pays attention to the world of politics and just our government at all. And this is my opinion on what happened to Charlie Kirk yesterday. So, I grew up in a family that's pretty far right. My mom is definitely on that bandwagon. My grandparents are, my stepdad is, all that. I also haven't had a very present father in my lifetime. But that's just background info. Bottom line, first thing I want to say is that if you are celebrating, if you are happy, or if you were like, oh well, he had it coming, or anything like that about what happened to him yesterday, then you need to reconsider everything that you've thought of in your life, everything that you've thought of about yourself. If you think you're a good person, really reconsider it. That is a man who left a wife, who I'm pretty sure was pregnant, and two loving kids, one of which, I've heard a rumor, I'm not sure if it's true, though, ran to him because she was scared of the sound of the gunshot. But yeah, bottom line, you really need to reconsider that. Now, I want to talk about the things that people are saying in response, or are acting like, well, why aren't we focusing on this? So, first thing is Gaza. Whenever somebody says, after this, I would say something like, dude, he didn't deserve to go out like that. And whatever, they're like, where was this energy for the kids in Gaza? Now, bottom line, this is the United States. That is Gaza. Now, we are, I'm pretty sure, allied with Israel, but aside from that, that does not mean that I condone innocent children dying, which is kind of what it feels like they're associating me with. If you are giving this energy to Charlie Kirk being assassinated, then that must mean that you don't care about the kids dying in Gaza because you didn't say anything about it. Now, it's the same for school shootings. Like, something Charlie Kirk said himself, though, is that you're never going to get 100% rid of gun deaths. All you can do is make security better. Like he said, how did banks get, like, their gun deaths and their robberies decrease significantly? Armed guards. Why don't baseball games get shot up? It's because they have armed guards outside and security. And, like, what did they do to airports after 9/11? They beefed the security up a lot. Made it a lot harder for somebody to go in there and do something like that. And the only thing that we can do for schools, really, because taking away the Second Amendment really isn't an option. Because in my opinion, if you took away the Second Amendment, you're going to start a civil war. He also said something that I didn't know beforehand until I heard about it a few months ago, is that the Second Amendment was not made for you protecting your family, you protecting your house. It was made to protect yourself against a tyrannical government, which was definitely a worry in the 1700s. Because, I mean, that's literally why the United States declared their independence, was because they were trying to get away from a tyrannical government of the British Empire. So, if you're saying something about Gaza, bottom line, and I'm pretty sure everybody else who is saddened by the death of Charlie Kirk, do not condone, nor really, we just don't think that it should happen. Like, a bunch of innocent people dying somewhere is not the way to go. But that doesn't mean that, we don't care because we said Charlie Kirk was sad, right? So, another thing that I want to get to is I want to talk about the false and incomplete and out of context quotes that people are spreading around about what Charlie Kirk had said in the past. So we'll start with that empathy quote. So he said, hold on, let me pull it up. So here's what Charlie Kirk said on empathy. It took me a minute, I had to pull it up on my computer. I couldn't find the full quote, but I did see it and hear it earlier. So, here, and I quote, "So the new communication strategy for Democrats, now that their polling average is collapsing in every single state, collapsing in Ohio, it's collapsing even in Arizona. It is now a race where Blake Masters is in striking distance. Kerry Lake is doing very, very well. The new communication strategy is not to do what Bill Clinton used to do, where he would say, quote, 'I feel your pain.' Instead, it is to say, quote, 'You are not actually in pain.' So let's just, very short clip. Bill Clinton in the 1990s. It was all about empathy and sympathy. And then he goes on to say, I can't stand the word empathy, actually. I think empathy is a made-up, new age term that it does a lot of damage. Now, a lot of people took that completely out of context. It made it seem like he just didn't believe in empathy at all, which is not the correct definition of the word. Empathy is going through something, the same thing that someone else has gone through, or them going through the same thing that you have gone through, and empathizing with you about it because they've been through it too. Now, empathy is different from sympathy. Sympathy is just being able to feel for somebody else, even though you haven't been in that situation, you feel bad for them. That is sympathy. Empathy is different. Empathy is not used in the right context. Usually, every time that I hear it. But yeah, I think that that's been taken terribly out of context. And on to the next thing that he's talked about is the gun deaths. Got some gun deaths. So, like I said earlier, something that I just remembered from when I saw a video about the gun deaths quote earlier, is that before this, he said something that I didn't know quite before, is that the reason that the Second Amendment was added in the Bill of Rights was because the people of the United States had to protect themselves in case of, an attack or something from the British or whatever again, or if some of the people in the United States government that was newly formed wanted to go crazy and be like, oh, we rule everything now. They needed to be able to protect themselves in the case of something like, a civil war. So, Charlie Kirk, before he said this statement, the first thing that he said leading up to this was, or after he said why the Second Amendment was created, he said that about 50,000 people die in car crashes every year. Now, if you banned cars, that would go down significantly, and you could probably get the deaths down to zero if you just made everybody walk everywhere. But that doesn't make a lot of sense because cars are easily accessible. They get people places, right? It's A to B. Cars are one of the greatest inventions that humans have ever come up with, and it really is fundamental to everything in the world right now. If we didn't have cars, I wonder what would happen if we didn't have cars. So 50,000 deaths per year in car crashes. And if people used the people don't kill people, guns kill people, and blame the guns for gun deaths, then you could blame the car for a drunk driver killing a family of 4. That doesn't make any sense. And it doesn't make the sense for a gun anyway. Now, I agree that there could be reforms to gun laws, as like more stable background checks. Make sure somebody who is mentally ill or just, I don't know, somebody who doesn't have any documentations of schizophrenia or something like that, buying a gun is something that's out of control usually because, well, it's hard to know that. But there could definitely be reform to the Second Amendment in some way. But I don't think, like he says, you'll ever get the deaths down to zero. And then he goes on to say that some gun deaths are necessary to keep the Second Amendment, which protects our other God-given rights. Now, that also makes sense, because he's not saying that if people die, oh, well, we need to keep it anyway, so, I don't know, go suck a dick. That's not what he's saying at all. What he's saying is that some deaths by guns are necessary to keep the Second Amendment for the people to protect themselves and to protect others from other crazy people and stuff like that, right? That's the whole point of the law nowadays. And before, it was to protect themselves from a tyrannical government trying to get control over everybody. And I've said this to other people before because this is just my stance on guns, is there's illegal guns in circulation right now. And people have guns, people know how to build them, people know how to manufacture them on their own. So what do you think is going to happen if they ban guns? And, okay, let's say, theoretically, there's a whole dark web, right? So let's say that everyone who owns a gun legally, they give up their gun. They give up their gun because they're registered, and they're like, oh, okay, well, I guess according to the law, it says that I have to give you my gun. So they give him, everybody who legally owns a gun gives him the gun. And the government has all of the legally owned guns and legally registered guns, but there's still going to be guns out there that aren't legally registered, that have illegal modifications, like a Glock with a switch or a drum magazine, which I'm pretty sure is not legal pretty much anywhere. Handguns should not have drum magazines and should not be semi-automatic or fully automatic, because that's a very high-powered weapon. It's dangerous. So, think about this. Doesn't make a lot of sense to get rid of the Second Amendment, because people are still going to get their hands on guns illegally anyway, because there's already illegal guns in circulation. People know how to build them. They'll just make them themselves. And it's really not hard to find the materials to, like, smith guns. Gunsmithing is not a terribly hard thing to get into. And a lot of people know about it. A lot of people learn about it. A lot of people like to know about it because of these situations that may happen in the coming years, which I highly doubt. I don't think the Second Amendment's ever going away, but I'm just saying it doesn't make sense to get rid of it. And he says some gun deaths are necessary to keep the Second Amendment, which is true. And everybody was like, oh, well, he said this. He said that some gun deaths were necessary to keep the Second Amendment, which means that, oh, well, he would think that it was okay that he died. That's not what he meant. That's not what he said. No sense in that at all. Doesn't make any sense. So bottom line, if you think that Charlie Kirk deserved what he got, you should be ashamed. You should be ashamed of yourself for that. I don't care if you didn't like him. I don't care if you hated him. At least care for his family. His wife and 2 kids who saw their father get shot right here and go limp right in front of their faces. One of which, like I said earlier, according to a rumor, ran up to their father after the gunshot because they were scared. And I saw a video of a man who, after Charlie got carried away by the security guards and the police officers to the car behind the stage thing, some guy had jumped over the little railing and started grabbing a bunch of the hats that he had thrown out to the fans and just took them and started throwing them out to people. I don't really care about that much. Now, it's really inconsiderate, really arrogant to do that, considering the situation. You just watched a dude get his neck blown out, and your first thought is to go take the hats that he would have thrown to the fans had he not gotten shot. Just, like, be considerate. Some people nowadays, they just don't care. It seems like they don't care. They don't care at all. That's just what it seems like. There's no sympathy in today's world. Sympathy. There's just, people are so desensitized. Now, honestly, somebody who had a lot of unsupervised access to the internet, I saw things like Ronnie McNutt in 2020 when I was like 10 years old. You know, stuff like that is a result of the internet. Stuff like that is going to happen. People are going to be desensitized to it. And that is, in a way, a bad thing. I'm not crying, I'm scratching my eye, but that is, in a way, it's a bad thing, right? I personally regret looking up the things that I looked up when I was 10 years old. I had unsupervised internet access. It's just not something that I should have known at that young of an age, and I don't think anybody should. But, personally, one of my biggest fears, in fact, I think my biggest fear, is being in a school shooting. As something that is so not normalized, but normal to happen in today's world almost. Something kind of expected almost, which is crazy to me. I've looked into a lot of those school shootings. Read about them. I've researched them. I've learned a lot about them. And one of the biggest things is that, like at my school, we have a lot of security. I don't think that a school shooting would be terribly dangerous unless there were multiple. We've got a lot of security. We get a lot of police officers, you know, very secure, I would say. But being caught in a school shooting, you're unarmed. You have nothing almost to defend yourself. And they expect you to stay in a room. Now, if the shooter is close enough, staying in the room is probably better than trying to run out or jump out a window or whatever. But sitting in a corner of a school classroom with none of your loved ones around you, and hearing gunshots in the hallways, hearing a lockdown siren or whatever, a smoke alarm from the gunshot or whatever, people crying in your classroom, sitting in the corner. It is the most terrifying situation that I never, ever want to be in. And if I am, I will never be the same person. I will never be the same person. It is never normal. It will never be normal. Will never be justified. If you're going to go into a school, shoot a bunch of people, and then shoot yourself, just shoot yourself first. Don't go shoot up a school. I want to go out with a bang and be famous. You are a terrible person. You are the scum of the earth. You are the most terrible something. I don't even know. That doesn't even make any sense, but you get what I'm saying. God created you to serve a purpose, and you went against His will and used your own free will to commit the acts of the devil. Something that nobody should ever do. I just want to say all of that, and this is when I come to a close. Rest in peace, Charlie Kirk. I did like the guy personally, watched his videos, thought he was funny, and even though I disagreed with him sometimes, he was a fun, loving, I would say, kind guy, and I don't think that he deserved to get shot in front of 3,000 people, of which were most definitely traumatized after that, and his wife and kids. None of that. Nobody ever deserves that. Thank you. I just wanted to say that.